The emergency extraction order came through at 3:17, and by 3:19, the last shuttle was already lifting off the Calder IV survey platform. Fen Marsh was on it, her 6 Huskies were not. The evacuation coordinator, a veteran named Esov, gray-green, four-armed, with the clipped precision of someone running a checklist under pressure, had reviewed the manifest at the loading ramp and flagged the dogs as non-essential cargo. Non-essential cargo did not board during a Class 2 atmospheric emergency. Non-essential cargo stayed in the holding pen on the platform sublevel, secured, with a 3-day emergency ration pack, while the essential personnel got clear of the incoming iron front. Fen had been standing on the ramp when Esov said it. She had looked at the shuttle. She had looked at the 6 dogs in their crates behind her, each of them with their nose pressed to the ventilation screen, watching her with the particular attention that working Siberian Huskies gave to the person who was about to make a decision they'd all have to live with. She had looked back at the shuttle. Then Esov's second-in-command had physically taken her arm and put her inside it, because the hatch was sealing and the iron front was 40 minutes out, and Fen Marsh was classified essential personnel, whether she liked the classification or not. The shuttle lifted. She watched the platform drop away through the viewport and kept watching until the clouds took it. The emergency operations hub was on Calder Station, 2 hours out from the planet's surface. Fen spent the transit with her back against the bulkhead and her hands in her lap, running numbers she didn't like. The iron front was a full-band electromagnetic event. It would sweep Calder IV for approximately 18 hours. Communication would be down for the duration. The survey platform was rated for Class 2 atmospheric events. Esov had noted this on the manifest, the way you noted facts when you needed them to do the work of reassurance. The platform's structural integrity was not in question. The heating systems were rated. The emergency rations were sufficient. Esov had listed all of this, and all of it was accurate, and none of it was the thing Fen was thinking about. She was thinking about Kip. Kip was the pack lead. He was 4 years old, 63 pounds, with the standard husky markings and a set of ice-blue eyes that had been tracking her expression for 3 years with the focused attention of a system that was never quite off duty. He knew, better than the other 5, what it meant when Fen's face went still and procedural. She had seen him respond to it before. She had seen him orient the other dogs. No command, no noise, just a repositioning of his body that communicated something along the lines of, "Wait and be ready." She did not know how he would interpret the absence of her face. The other 5 were Lace, the senior female, who ran second and had the quiet authority of a dog who did not need to demonstrate anything. Wick and Bray, the brothers, who were inseparable and had learned years ago that chaos was a strategy. Stell, the youngest at 2.5, who still looked to Kip for every cue that Fen hadn't already given. And Drift, the gray-coated one, who was the calmest animal Fen had ever worked with, and who she privately believed was operating on a slightly different philosophical framework than the rest of them. 6 dogs in a sub-level holding pen on a survey platform in the middle of an iron front, with a 3-day ration pack and no handler. She pulled up the platform's last logged environmental data on her wristpad. Temperature in the sub-level holding pen, -4°C. Heating system status, nominal. Emergency backup, charged. She ran the math on the rations, checked the waterline pressure, looked at the iron front trajectory one more time. She was out of her seat, and at the operations center door before the shuttle finished docking. Esov met her in the hub corridor, which suggested someone had told him she was coming. "Handler Marsh," he said. He had the neutral tone of an administrator preparing to decline something. "I need a shuttle back to the surface," Fen said. She kept her voice even. She had learned early in her career that the voice that got things done was not the one that shook. "The iron front is 40 minutes from peak, I know. I need to go before it peaks." Esav's horizontal pupils moved. A surface shuttle in advance of an iron front is not an authorized deployment. I know that too. She had her tablet out, the platform schematics already pulled up. The sublevel heating backup runs on the platform's secondary power cell. If the primary takes a surge hit during the front, the backup activates. If the backup takes a second surge hit, the sublevel drops to emergency thermal minimum. That's -17 Celsius. My dogs have a coat rating down to -12. She turned the tablet so he could see the numbers. I need to go back. Esav looked at the numbers. He looked at Fen. He looked at the corridor behind him as if consulting a resource that wasn't there. You are essential personnel, he said. The authorization to deploy essential personnel into an active ion approach requires a senior operations sign-off. Then I need to speak to senior operations. Senior Operations Officer Havith is managing the platform evacuation data and is not available for. I'll wait, Fen said. She sat down in one of the corridor chairs. Esav looked at her sitting in the corridor chair. He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, with something that was not quite impatience and not quite respect, "You cannot wait outside the operations center." I'm not outside it, Fen said. I'm in the corridor adjacent to it. There's a difference. He left. She waited. On the platform, the iron front arrived at 4:12. Kip knew something had changed before the instruments registered it. The lighting in the sublevel dropped to emergency amber, one circuit over, then another, the grid redistributing load. The air pressure shifted by a fraction that would have been imperceptible to anything without a nose built for reading weather systems. He moved to the crate door and tested it, latched from the outside. He was familiar with latches, and this one was not the kind he could work with his muzzle through the ventilation screen. He moved back to the center of the crate and sat. Lace in the crate to his left was watching him. He glanced at her. She settled. Wick and Bray, in the double crate to his right, were circling. They had picked up the pressure change and converted it to energy before any decision had been made about what to do with it. Kip watched them until they slowed, then looked away, which was the signal that worked. Stell was pressed against the back of her crate, ears up, reading every cue she could find. Drift was lying down. Drift was almost always lying down. The heating system hummed. The emergency amber held. Something in the ventilation shaft made a sound it hadn't made before, a distant resonance, the kind that structures make when something large is pressing on them from the outside. Kip lay down. He put his chin on his paws. His eyes stayed open, tracking the shaft's sound, processing it, filing it under known and not acting on yet. This was the thing about Kip. He did not confuse processing with panic. He had learned from watching Fen that a calm face was not a face that wasn't paying attention. It was a face that had paid full attention and decided to wait. The temperature in the pen dropped 2 degrees. The heating system corrected. He waited. Havith signed the authorization at 5:08. It had taken Fen 47 minutes, a complete structural analysis of the platform's power distribution grid presented without notes from a tablet she had spent the waiting time reading, and a final argument that had come down to a single number. If the sublevel thermal system failed, she had a 4-hour recovery window before the dogs were in serious danger. The ion front cleared at an estimated 2100. That left a margin. But the shuttle transit was 2 hours each way, and if she didn't leave now, the margin closed. Havith, a Thurvian, 7 feet tall, 4-armed, with the flat pragmatic energy of someone who had approved difficult decisions before and understood that some of them were going to happen regardless, had looked at her numbers, looked at the authorization form on his desk, and said, "You understand that you are going back down into a Class 2 atmospheric event?" "Yes," Fen said. "You understand that communication will be down until the front clears?" "Yes." He had signed it. The shuttle pilot was a human, which helped. His name was Dort. He was 26, and he had the economical attitude of someone who had drawn interesting assignments before and had made his peace with it. He looked at the authorization form, looked at the planet on the scope, and said, "I'll get us as close as I can before I have to park in the high atmosphere. After that, it's drop shuttle, manual descent, no telemetry." "I know," Fen said. "You've done manual descents." "Yes." Dort considered this. "How many?" "3. He nodded. "Same." He started the pre-launch sequence. "What are we going down for?" "My dogs," she said. He didn't ask anything else. The drop took 22 minutes. The ion front was discharging in the upper atmosphere by the time they hit the lower cloud deck, and the light was the flat, dead white of a sky that had swallowed all the electromagnetic spectrum it could hold. The platform appeared on the visual scanner at 900 meters, its running lights still on, good sign, its primary comms array dark, expected. Dort brought them down on the service platform pad at the sublevel access point. The wind outside the hull was reading at 64 kilometers per hour with gusts above 80, and the exterior temperature was -9. Fen was at the hatch before the landing struts fully extended. "I'll keep the engines warm," Dort said. "Don't take long." She didn't answer because she was already moving. The service corridor was emergency lit in amber, which meant the primary grid had done exactly what she'd calculated, taken a surge hit during peak discharge and handed off to backup. The backup was holding. Temperature on her wrist pad read -6 in the corridor. She moved at a controlled jog, not a run, because running in an unfamiliar emergency-lit corridor during an active atmospheric event was how you found things the hard way. The holding pen was at sublevel 3. She took the stairs. She heard them before she reached the door. Not panic sounds, not howling, not the high distress note that huskies were entirely capable of producing at concert volume when they decided communication was the priority. What she heard was quieter than that, a low, steady resonance, the kind a pack makes when they are keeping each other calibrated. Soft contact sounds. Breath. The particular low note that drift made, which wasn't quite a hum and wasn't quite a whine, that the others had always seemed to find settling. She got the door open. Kip was on his feet before the door was half open. His ears came forward. His tail moved, not the full-body wag of greeting, but the slow, deliberate sweep that meant, "You came back, and I knew you would, and we can proceed now." She unlatched his crate first. He stepped out and pressed his head against her leg hard, once, not leaning, not needing support, just contact, the way you touch a wall to confirm it's solid. Then he stepped back and sat, watching her work through the other crates. Lace came out second, circled once, and went a stand at Kip's left shoulder. Wick and Bray came out together, and immediately began investigating the pen, with the focused energy of animals that had been in close quarters, and had opinions about it. Stell came out and went straight to Fen's side, pressing against her knee, and stayed there. Drift came out last, looked around with the mild expression of someone assessing a situation that had resolved in the expected direction, and sat down. Fen crouched in the middle of them. The temperature in the pen was -8, the backup had held, the system had done its job, and the numbers she'd run at 400 in a corridor on Calder Station had been correct. They were cold. They were fine. Kip put his nose against her cheek. She had both hands on either side of his face, and she looked at him for a moment in the amber light. 6 dogs around her in various states of circling and pressing and sitting with great philosophical calm, with the ion front still discharging somewhere above them, and the shuttle engine warm on the pad above. "Okay," she said, which was what she always said when the decision had been made and the next thing needed to happen. He turned toward the door. They were back on the shuttle in 9 minutes. Dort counted the dogs as they boarded. He'd left the rear hatch open and the cargo bay heated, which Fen noted and would not forget, and said, when the sixth one was aboard and she pulled the hatch. All six. All six, she said. He had the shuttle off the pad before she reached the cockpit. She sat in the co-pilot seat and looked at the scanner as the platform dropped away below them, the same view in reverse, the same shrinking structure disappearing into clouds. The difference was that this time she had 6 pairs of ice blue eyes and 1 set of mild gray ones watching from the cargo bay behind her, and Kip's weight where he had positioned himself, pressed against the side of her seat, chin on the armrest, watching the instruments with the same attention she was. Dort glanced back once. He looked at Kip, he looked at Fen. He said nothing, which was the correct choice. The iron front was still at peak when they broke the cloud deck, and Dort handed off to the autopilot for the high-atmosphere hold. The planet's surface below them was invisible under the storm. The comms were still dark. Esov would be running his manifest and his platform status and his authorized personnel metrics, and all of it would show Handler Marsh and 6 non-essential animals unaccounted for until the front cleared and telemetry came back online. Fen put her hand on Kip's head. He closed his eyes. They waited out the storm together, 6,000 meters above it, and when the comms finally opened at 2047 and Esov's voice came through asking for status, her answer was 12 words. Handler Marsh, all personnel accounted for, ready to return to station. There was a pause on Esov's end. Then he said carefully, all personnel. All personnel, she said. Another pause. She could hear in it the particular quality of someone recalculating a category. Understood, he said at last. Come in when you're ready. Kip's tail moved once, slow and even, like a metronome finding its tempo. She brought them home,